She was left alone on a date, but the billionaire found her. Love has a voice. She dressed for love but dined with loneliness. When the man she waited for never came, fate sent someone who wasn't supposed to be there. A billionaire who finally heard love's voice. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. The restaurant glowed with soft amber light, violins whispering beneath the hum of laughter. Couples leaned into each other across tables. Silverware clinked like small promises. But at table 16, Maureen sat alone, fingers twisting the edge of her napkin, eyes flicking toward the door every few seconds. Her dress was simple but lovely, sky blue satin that caught the light whenever she moved. She'd spent her last savings on it, believing tonight might be worth remembering. The waiter approached for the third time, offering a sympathetic smile. "Still waiting, miss?" She forced a nod. "He's on his way." But he wasn't. Her date, a man she'd met online after months of loneliness, had gone silent an hour ago. Her messages remained unread, her calls unanswered. As the minutes stretched, her excitement curdled into embarrassment. Conversations around her blurred into background noise. The laughter at nearby tables felt like an orchestra mocking her hope. Outside, rain began to fall thin, whispering drops against the glass. The city lights shimmered through the wet window pane, bending and breaking like her heart. She stared into her untouched glass of water, blinking back tears. At another corner of the same restaurant, Alexander entered quietly. The maitre d' greeted him with exaggerated politeness, but he brushed it off. He wasn't there for company. He'd come only to escape another lonely dinner in his echoing mansion. The billionaire everyone envied walked with the heaviness of a man who'd stopped believing in connection long ago. He ordered black coffee, nothing else, and sat near the window, half hidden behind the soft glow of a candle. His eyes drifted idly over the room until they stopped. There she was, a woman sitting alone, trying to smile at her reflection in the glass. He could see it, the tiny tremor of her lips, the practiced control of someone pretending she didn't care. Something in that sight pierced through him, deeper than he expected. He'd seen loneliness before, his own, but this was different. Maureen caught the waiter whispering something to a colleague, probably pitying her. Her cheeks flushed. "You can cancel the order," she muttered, fumbling for her bag. I should go." As she rose, her phone slipped from her trembling hands, clattering against the marble floor. She crouched, flustered, but before she could pick it up, another hand reached it first. Alexander. Their eyes met briefly, hers red from unshed tears, his distant yet oddly gentle. "You dropped this," he said softly. She took the phone, mumbling, "Thank you," before turning away. But something about his tone, calm, low, unexpectedly kind, made her pause. He could have ignored her like everyone else, but he didn't. Alexander watched her walk toward the door, rain glinting behind her like falling glass. For a reason he couldn't explain, he didn't want her to leave. Maybe it was the silence she carried. Maybe it was the voice of love, whispering for the first time in a long while. Have you ever been left waiting for someone who never showed up? Share your story or how you'd have felt if you were Maureen. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. The rain had thickened into a steady downpour when Maureen stepped outside. Her umbrella refused to open, a cruel joke the night seemed eager to play. She stood under the awning, shivering, watching the traffic smear through sheets of water. The city was full of people, but she'd never felt more alone. She whispered to herself, "I should have known." The words dissolved into the rain. Behind her, Alexander hesitated at the restaurant door, coffee untouched. Something tugged at him, an impulse he didn't recognize anymore. He had built his life on logic and caution, but tonight logic felt hollow. He walked toward her, coat in hand. "Excuse me." His voice cut softly through the rain. "You'll catch a cold standing here." Maureen turned, startled. He stood beneath the golden light spilling from the doorway, tall and composed, eyes dark but kind. She recognized him instantly, the man who'd picked up her phone. "Oh, I'm fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "I'm just waiting for—" "Well, it doesn't matter." He glanced at her soaked hair, the trembling of her fingers. "You were waiting for someone," he said, not as a question but as a quiet truth. She looked away, embarrassed. "Guess I wasn't worth the wait." The honesty in her voice disarmed him. Most people tried to hide their pain. She carried hers like something sacred, raw, real, human. "Sometimes," he said, stepping closer, "people walk away not because you're not enough, but because they never were." Maureen blinked, unsure how to respond. The words hit her chest like warmth. No one had ever defended her pain before. He handed her his coat. "Here, take this." "I can't." "You can," he insisted gently. "Please." She hesitated, then took it. The coat smelled faintly of cedar and rain. For the first time that night, she felt something that wasn't shame. She felt seen. "Thank you," she murmured. He nodded once, then added quietly, "You shouldn't let this night define you. You showed up. That says something about you." A pause lingered between them, thick with something unsaid. Then he smiled faintly. "Would you mind if I offered a ride home? It's not safe out here." Maureen hesitated. Every instinct told her to decline, but something about his calm steadiness made her trust him. Maybe it was the sincerity in his eyes, or maybe she was too tired to keep pretending she didn't need kindness. "All right," she whispered. "Thank you, Mr. Alexander," he said simply. "Just Alexander." As they walked toward his car, the rain softened. Neither spoke, but the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was fragile, like something waiting to be named. Inside the car, the hum of the engine filled the quiet. Maureen watched the city slide by through the window, lights bleeding into streaks of color. She caught her reflection, still sad, but somehow softer. Alexander stole a glance at her. There was something magnetic about her quiet strength. He felt the faintest ache in his chest, a reminder that he wasn't as numb as he thought. He didn't know it yet, but tonight, the woman left behind would become the one thing his fortune could never buy: peace. And she didn't know it either, but the man who offered her a ride was about to change what she believed about love forever. If you were in Maureen's shoes, would you have accepted the stranger's help or walked away? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes, one small yes can change everything. The ride home was quiet, the kind of quiet that speaks louder than words. Maureen kept her hands folded in her lap, unsure where to look. Every few seconds, she caught herself sneaking glances at Alexander, the man whose face she'd seen once in a magazine but never imagined would be real enough to offer her warmth in the rain. When the car stopped in front of her small apartment building, she murmured, "Thank you for everything." Alexander nodded politely, keeping his voice distant. "You're welcome. Take care." Their eyes met once more before she stepped out. He watched her disappear into the dim hallway, her silhouette fading into the night, and something in him tightened. He had promised himself not to get involved with anyone again. Yet her presence lingered, like a song he couldn't turn off. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of Alexander's penthouse office. His assistant spoke, but he barely listened. His mind was back at the restaurant, on the girl who tried to smile through humiliation. "Sir?" the assistant asked. "Did you hear me? The meeting with the board starts in 10. He blinked, nodding absently. "Yes, I'll be there." He wasn't. He ended up at the same cafe near the restaurant instead, pretending he was there for business. He wasn't sure what he was hoping for. Maybe a glimpse of her, a closure to the strange pull in his chest. But she wasn't there. He left after 20 minutes, telling himself it was for the best. He had no space in his life for distractions. Meanwhile, Maureen sat on her bed, wrapped in his coat, replaying every word he'd said. "You showed up. That says something about you." No man had ever spoken to her like that. Not with pity, but with recognition. Still, she scolded herself. "He was just being nice," she whispered. "Men like him don't look twice at girls like me." She folded the coat carefully, planning to return it. But days passed and she didn't. Maybe she didn't want to. It was the first warmth she'd felt in a long time. When she finally mustered courage to visit the restaurant again, hoping to leave it at the front desk, she froze. Alexander was there, sitting alone, this time without a coffee, just staring out the window. He noticed her almost immediately. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. "I was just returning this," she said, holding out the coat. He smiled faintly. "I was hoping you'd keep it." Her lips parted in surprise. "Why?" "Because it looks better on you," he said softly, then looked away, embarrassed by his own words. She let out a small laugh, a real one this time. But then, almost instantly, her guard returned. "You don't have to be kind to me, Alexander. You don't owe me anything." He looked at her then, eyes quiet but intense. "Maybe I just wanted to see you again." The words hung between them, trembling with something that felt dangerous. Maureen stepped back slightly, clutching the coat. "I should go." He didn't stop her. He couldn't, because the moment he reached out, it would mean breaking every wall he'd built to protect what was left of his heart. And she wasn't ready to believe in fairy tales again. Not yet. The rain had returned 3 days later, heavy and relentless. The city's streets glistened under flickering streetlights, and thunder grumbled in the distance. Maureen stood by the glass window of the restaurant where it had all begun, clutching the same blue coat. She had finally decided. She'd give it back and move on. Enough confusion. Enough waiting. Inside, she asked to speak to the manager, but he wasn't around. The storm outside had forced most of the staff to stay late. The waiter who'd served her last time smiled kindly. "You can wait in the lounge, miss. It's safer than walking out now." She sighed and nodded, stepping into the dimly lit lounge with its soft music and golden glow. She didn't realize someone else was already there, seated near the fireplace, reading. Alexander. He looked up, startled, as though the universe itself had conspired to embarrass his self-control. "Maureen." Her heart skipped. "You're here." "I could ask the same," he replied, closing his book slowly. They both laughed awkwardly. The storm roared louder, trapping them inside together. "I came to return this," she said, holding out the coat again. He smiled faintly. "You really don't like keeping things, do you?" "I don't like debts." "Then don't think of it as one," he said softly. "Think of it as a favor from one lonely soul to another." She hesitated, then sank into the seat opposite him. For a while neither spoke. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the steady rhythm of rain against glass. "Do you come here often?" she asked finally. "Lately, yes," he admitted. "It's quiet here. No one expects anything from me." She studied him for a moment, the billionaire who seemed more comfortable in silence than in success. "That sounds lonely." He smiled a little sadly. "It is." Something in his honesty made her relax. She leaned back, letting herself breathe. You know, when I was left here last week, I swore I'd never come back. I thought this place would always remind me of humiliation. And now, she looked around, eyes softening. Now it feels different. Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating her face. And in that brief light, he saw something that pulled at his heart. Resilience. She had been broken, but she refused to stay that way. The power flickered suddenly, then went out completely. Darkness fell across the room. Maureen gasped. "Don't worry," Alexander said calmly, using the faint light from his phone. "Stay close. They'll fix it soon." She moved nearer, the distance between them shrinking until she could feel the warmth of his shoulder. "I used to hate storms," she murmured. "They always made me feel trapped. And now," she looked at him through the half-light, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now I don't mind them as much." Something in his chest loosened. A rare smile tugged at his lips. When the lights finally came back, neither moved right away. The silence that followed wasn't awkward anymore. It was comforting. Outside, the rain still fell, but it no longer sounded sad. Maybe, just maybe, the storm had other plans. The rain had stopped by the time the restaurant lights came back fully. The city outside shimmered like a dream reborn after a storm. Alexander and Maureen sat quietly for a long while, sipping warm tea that neither of them really wanted. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was curious, like two souls circling around a truth they weren't ready to name. Finally, Maureen broke it. "Can I ask you something?" He looked up, calm but cautious. "Anything. You said you liked quiet places because no one expects anything from you. Why is that?" He smiled faintly, then set his cup down. "Because expectations can destroy you." She frowned softly. "Someone hurt you?" He hesitated, fingers tapping against the table. "Once. I was engaged. Years ago. She loved the billionaire, not the man. When the money vanished, briefly, because of a legal freeze, she left within 24 hours. Maureen's heart tightened. "I'm sorry." He shrugged. "It's been years, but it changes you. You stop trusting easily. You start wondering if anyone sees you, really sees you, or just what you have." She nodded slowly. "That's not just you. I've been there too." His eyes lifted. "You? Not with money," she said, forcing a smile, "but with people who said they loved me until I stopped fitting their idea of perfect. The man who stood me up that night? He said I was too quiet, too simple. He wanted someone more exciting." Her voice trembled, but she held it steady. "I guess I just got tired of trying to prove I was enough." Alexander's gaze softened. "You are enough, Maureen." She looked up, startled by the conviction in his voice. "I don't say that to comfort you," he continued. "I say it because I saw the way you sat there that night. Proud, even when you were breaking. People like you don't come around often." Her throat tightened. "You don't even know me." "Maybe not. But sometimes you don't need to know everything to recognize something true." Their eyes met, and for the first time neither looked away. The waiter appeared to inform them the storm had cleared, but they barely heard him. Their world had already changed. Later, outside, Alexander insisted on walking her home again. The night air was cool, the streets still glistening with raindrops. "Do you ever think," Maureen asked quietly, "that maybe some storms happen just to bring people together?" He glanced at her, a small smile curving his lips. "Maybe love has its own weather." They stopped in front of her apartment building. "This is me," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but I wish it wasn't the end of the walk." Her heart fluttered. It doesn't have to be. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. And then she whispered, "Would you like to come in for coffee?" He hesitated, then nodded once. "I'd like that." As they stepped inside, Maureen realized something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. And Alexander, for the first time in forever, felt like someone had finally seen him. Not the billionaire, but the man behind the name. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and rain. Maureen switched on a soft lamp by the couch, its glow wrapping the small living room in gentle amber warmth. Alexander stood at the doorway, hesitant, almost shy, an odd contrast to the confident billionaire the world knew. "You can sit," she said with a nervous smile, brushing back her damp hair. "I promise I don't bite." He laughed quietly and sat down, his posture still careful. "I haven't been invited into someone's home like this in a long time." "Why?" she asked, heading into the kitchen. "Because people usually come to mine," he replied. "It's expected. Grand, cold, polished, but never warm." Her voice floated from the kitchen. "I think warmth doesn't come from walls or chandeliers. It comes from the people inside." He watched her as she returned with 2 mugs of steaming coffee. "You really believe that?" "I have to," she said softly, handing him a cup. "Otherwise, I'd have nothing left to believe in." They sipped in silence, listening to the quiet rhythm of the city outside. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't something to fill. It was something to feel. He noticed her hands trembling slightly. "You're cold." She shook her head. "Just nervous." He hesitated, then gently took her hand in his. "You don't need to be." His touch was warm, grounding. For a moment, everything else fell away. The disappointment, the heartbreak, the loneliness that had haunted both of them for so long. "Alexander," she whispered, "why did you really stay that night? You could have just left after you paid the bill." He smiled faintly. "Because I saw myself in you, alone, pretending not to care." Her breath caught. "You think I pretend?" "I think we both do," he said. "And maybe it's time we stop." She laughed lightly, the sound fragile but sincere. "You sound like someone who's ready to believe in love again." He met her gaze, his voice low and steady. "I think I already do." Her heart skipped. Not because of the words, but because of the truth in them. They talked for hours about her childhood in a small town, about how she used to dream of becoming a teacher, about how he used to sneak out of his mansion just to watch street musicians. Each story stitched a small piece of their broken hearts back together. When the clock struck midnight, she blinked in surprise. "It's late." "I didn't even notice," he said with a soft laugh. "That's a first." She stood, walking him to the door. He paused there, reluctant to leave. "Thank you, Maureen," he said, "for tonight, for reminding me what being human feels like." She smiled gently. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." Their eyes met again, the unspoken words between them louder than any confession could be. As he stepped into the hallway, she called softly, "Alexander." He turned. "Do you think love really has a voice?" He smiled, the kind that carried both pain and hope. "If it does, I think I just heard it tonight." The door closed, but neither of them slept that night. If you were Maureen, would you risk opening your heart again after being left broken? Tell us what you do in the comments below. The morning light glinted harshly against Maureen's apartment window. She scrolled through her phone, her heart sinking with every tap. Social media was alive with a photo of her and Alexander from the restaurant, leaked online with a headline screaming, "Billionaire seen with unknown woman. Gold digger or true love?" Her stomach nodded. People were already speculating. Comment threads mocked her, questioning her motives, her worth. Even friends whispered doubt. She slammed her phone down, the coat from that night falling from her lap. "I can't," she whispered, tears stinging. "I can't be part of this. Not like this." Alexander sat in his penthouse, reading the same article, the golden light of the morning mocking him. His chest ached, not from anger at the tabloids, but from knowing she would see it. He had hoped to protect her, shield her from the world that only wanted to judge. But he hadn't been fast enough. The phone rang. He saw her name flash on the screen, but when he picked up, only silence answered. She hung up before he could speak. Hours passed. Every message he sent went unanswered. Every attempt to reach her was met with cold distance. He replayed their conversations, every laugh, every tender moment, and then the photo. It wasn't just a picture. It was the world telling them they didn't belong together. Maureen wandered through the city streets that evening, rain starting to fall again. She clutched her coat, trying to make herself invisible. The warmth she had felt with Alexander felt fragile now, shattered by judgment and doubt. Maybe I imagined it all, she thought. Maybe he was just being kind and I wanted too much. Meanwhile, Alexander left his office, walking briskly through the empty city. He needed clarity. He needed to find her before the world convinced her that love was impossible. He found her standing beneath a street lamp, rain dripping onto her hair, shoulders tense. Her eyes met his, but they were wary, filled with hurt and mistrust. "Maureen," he said softly. "I can't do this, Alexander," she said, voice tight. "I can't be part of your world or anyone's world, if all people see is a headline." He stepped closer, rain soaking his coat. "You don't understand. The world can say whatever it wants. It doesn't matter. What matters is what's real." Her lips trembled. "And what if real isn't enough?" He shook his head, taking both her hands in his. "It is. To me. Nothing else matters." For a moment, it seemed like it could work, but the walls she had built around her heart were high. She stepped back, tears slipping freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I thought I could believe in love again. But maybe some things are just too much." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Alexander standing alone in the rain, the echo of their laughter from nights ago haunting him. The night was still, almost too quiet. Alexander sat in his apartment, staring at the rain-soaked streets below. The photo, the comments, the distance in her voice over the phone. Every one of them pressed against his chest like a weight he couldn't shake. "She thinks I don't care," he thought. "But I can't force her. I can only be honest." Meanwhile, Maureen sat in her dimly lit apartment, the blue coat folded neatly beside her. She replayed the moments of laughter, of warmth, of gentle touches, all of it now tainted by the whispers of strangers. Was it real? Or just a fleeting kindness? Her phone vibrated. A message from Alexander. She hesitated, thumb hovering. The message read, "I won't let this end because of noise. Meet me where it all began." She froze. Her heart screamed. Her mind argued. Pride, fear, and longing warred inside her. If I go, I risk everything again. If I don't, I lose the one person who ever truly saw me. The restaurant was quiet that night, the storm from earlier only a memory. Alexander stood near the window, hands in his pockets, watching the door. He had waited before, yes, but tonight felt different, heavier, more urgent. When the door opened, Maureen stepped inside, coat drawn tight, eyes wary. He saw her instantly, every inch of doubt and fear in her posture. "Maureen," he whispered as she approached. Alexander leaned closer, voice low and intimate. "Do you hear it?" "Hear what?" she asked. "Love," he said simply. "It has a voice, Maureen. And tonight, it's speaking for us." A small laugh escaped her lips, soft and joyful. She reached up, brushing a wet strand of hair from his face. "Then let's listen to it together." They sat down at a table by the window, the city lights glimmering around them. Alexander ordered 2 cups of coffee, and they shared stories, laughter, and small confessions. Every word, every glance, felt heavier with meaning than it had before. At one point, she caught his gaze and whispered, "You really do see me, don't you?" "I see you," he replied, voice steady and unwavering. "All of you, the laughter, the pain, the courage, the beauty. I see it all." She smiled, tears threatening but unable to fall, her heart swelling with a joy she hadn't felt in years. Outside, the rain had stopped entirely. The city pulsed gently, peaceful and alive. And in that quiet, golden-lit restaurant, two souls who had been broken, abandoned, and misunderstood finally found each other. Alexander reached across the table, hand covering hers, and said, "We made it through, and now, it's just us." Maureen's lips curved in a smile, soft but triumphant. "Just us," she whispered. The world outside could do whatever it wanted. Inside, love had found its voice, and it was loud enough for both of them to finally hear. Do you believe love really has a voice? Tell us how you found it in your life, or who you hope hears it one day, in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.